Most people think they know what it means to be rich. They think of private jets or mansions. But in the year 1324, a man stepped out of the Sahel of West Africa who didn't just have money, he was the West African economy. His name was Musa Keita I. History remembers him as Mansa Musa. As he crossed the Sahara on a 4,000-mile journey to Mecca, he didn't just bring a caravan, he brought a moving city. 60,000 men, 12,000 enslaved attendants draped in Persian silk, and 80 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of pure, unrefined gold dust. But this isn't just a story of wealth. It's a story of a massive, accidental financial experiment. Musa was so generous, donating so much gold to the poor of Cairo and Medina, that he actually broke the world. He caused a 12-year economic depression in Egypt simply by being too kind. Today, we aren't just looking at the legend. We are looking at the math. How did the West African king become so powerful that his charity could crash the markets of the Mediterranean? And what happened when the richest man in history realized he accidentally destroyed the lives of the people he tried to help? To understand the gold, we have to understand the land. In the 14th century, the Mali Empire was the largest producer of gold in the world. At a time when Europe was struggling through the Middle Ages and the Black Death was looming, Mali was entering its golden age. But Mali's wealth wasn't just luck. It was a masterclass in logistics. Musa sat at the center of three massive gold mines: Bambouk, Buri, and Akan. In fact, much of the gold came from modern-day Ghana, Guinea, and Mali. The empire didn't just find gold, they regulated it. Mansa had a clever legal monopoly. Any gold nugget found belonged to the king. The people, however, were allowed to trade the gold dust. This kept the big money in the hands of the states, whilst keeping the local economy liquid and active. Mali also controlled the northern salt mines of Tagaza. In the ancient world, salt was worth its weight in gold because it was essential for preserving food. By controlling both gold of the south and the salt of the north, Mali became the world's ultimate middleman. If you wanted to eat in North Africa or spend money in Europe, you eventually had to pay a tax to the Mansa of Mali. Most people think Mali's wealth was just a lucky accident of geography. But history shows us that wealth without a system is just a target. Mali was a superpower because it was a triad of power: agriculture, military, and a monopoly on trade. The heart of Mali wasn't the deserts, it was the Niger River. Unlike the previous Ghana Empire, which relied almost entirely on camels, Mali controlled the river. This was their superpower. This was their superhighway. By river, they could move bulk goods, rice, millet, and iron, at 10 times the speed of a desert caravan. The river's annual flooding created the inland delta, a massive fertile plain that allowed Mali to do something few ancient empires could: feed itself. While Rome had to import grain from Egypt, Mali was self-sufficient. This food security was the base of their stability. Mali didn't just find gold, they managed it with a brilliance that would make a modern central bank jealous. They controlled three massive gold fields: Bambouk, Buri, and Akan. But here's the genius: Mali never allowed markets to be flooded at home. The nugget law. Every gold nugget found belonged to the king. Only gold dust was allowed for public trade. By hoarding the nuggets, The Mansa prevented inflation within his own borders and kept the global price of gold high by controlling the supply. To the merchants of Venice and Cairo, West African gold was a mystery. They never knew exactly where it came from, only that the Mansa of Mali was the only one who held the keys. Finally, there was the Mandikalu, the elite cavalry, under the founder, Sundiata Keita. The Mali Empire developed a semi-professional army of 100,000 men. They weren't just for conquest, they were for insurance. Mali provided a service called Pax Maliana. If you were a merchant from Morocco or Egypt, you paid a high tax to enter Mali. In exchange, the Mansa's army guaranteed that you would not be robbed. In the 1300s, the roads of Mali were considered the safest in the world. You weren't just paying for gold, you were paying for the security to trade it. The 3 tiers of taxation. How did the treasury stay full? It wasn't just gold. Import-export tax. Every slab of salt coming from the north and every ounce of gold coming out was taxed at the border. The tribute system. Conquered kingdoms didn't just pay in gold, they paid in kind. Thousands of arrows, bags of rice, and herds of cattle flowed into the capital of Niani every year as a sign of loyalty. The agricultural tax. Even the local farmers contributed a portion of their harvest to the state's silos, ensuring that if a drought hit, the empire and its army wouldn't starve. The 1324 pilgrimage. When Musa decided to perform the Hajj, he didn't just go as a humble pilgrim, he went as a superpower. Think about the logistics. To move 60,000 people across the Sahara, you need millions of gallons of water and tons of grain. Musa's officials were sent months in advance to clear wells and pay oases to stock up on food. Every Friday, it said he ordered a new mosque to be built wherever the caravan stopped. This wasn't just religious devotion, it was brand building. He was showing the Islamic world that West Africa was not a fringe territory, it was the center of civilization. But then he reached Cairo. Cairo was the New York City of the 14th century. It was the financial hub of the Mamluk Sultanate. When Musa arrived, he was so generous that he gave a load of gold to every official in the city. He spent so much gold in the local markets buying souvenirs and supplies that the unthinkable happened. The price of gold plummeted. In a world on the gold standard, this was like a modern government printing trillions of dollars in a single afternoon. Suddenly, everyone had gold, which means no one wanted it. The value of the Egyptian currency dropped by nearly 25%. Bread prices skyrocketed. The life savings of ordinary people were wiped out because the richest man in the world decided to be nice. To understand why Cairo's economy collapsed, you have to understand how money worked in the 14th century. There were no central banks. There was no printing of money. Value was tied directly to the physical rarity of gold and silver. When Mansa Musa entered Cairo, he didn't just bring wealth, he brought a supply shock. In economics, we call this quantity theory of money. Think of it this way. Imagine a small village where there are only 100 loaves of bread and only 100 gold coins in circulation. Each loaf of bread costs 1 gold coin. Now, imagine a king walks in and hands everyone an extra 100 gold coins. Does this village have more bread? No. They still only have 100 loaves. But now, everyone has twice as much money to bid for that bread. the price of the bread will naturally jump from 1 coin to 2 coins. This is exactly what happened in Cairo, but on a catastrophic scale. Musa gave away so much gold, estimated at over 12 tons in Cairo alone, that the market was flooded. Gold was the US dollar of the medieval age. By increasing the supply of gold so rapidly, he lowered its purchasing power. The local currency, the Mamluk dinar, was decimated. Historians like Al-Umari recorded that the value of the mithqal, a unit weight of gold, dropped by over 25% almost overnight. But the real victims weren't the rich. They were the poor and the middle class, the fixed income workers, soldiers and teachers who were paid a set salary in silver or gold suddenly found that their monthly pay could only buy half the food it used to. Merchants began hoarding goods, refusing to sell unless people paid inflated prices. Cairo was the center of the gold trade between Africa and Europe. When the price crashed in Cairo, the ripples were felt all the way to the banks of Venice and Genoa. For the next 12 years, the Egyptian economy stayed in depression. This is the only time in recorded human history that one single man, not a war, not a plague, but one man's generosity, controlled the price of gold across the entire Mediterranean. The first central bank, the Great Reset. By the time Mansa Musa left Cairo and reached the holy city of Mecca, the news followed him like a shadow. The Egyptian economy was in a tailspin. Imagine the scene. Musa had arrived as a savior, a pious king giving away his fortune. But as he turned his caravan back towards the west, he realized his generosity had turned into a weapon of mass destruction for the people of the Nile. This is where the story shifts from wealth to genius. The accidental hyperinflation. Musa didn't just spend money. He accidentally engaged in what we now call quantitative easing. By dumping 12 tons of gold into a market that wasn't ready for it, he had decoupled the value of money from the reality of goods. In Cairo, the price of a single silver dirham, the coin the poor used to buy bread, skyrocketed in value compared to gold. The wealthy had gold, but they couldn't buy anything with it because the common traders were terrified the gold would lose even more value by morning. Musa saw this, and instead of just riding away, he decided to perform the first recorded open market operation in human history, the reverse repo of 1325. Musa didn't have enough physical goods to trade back for the gold, so he used debt. He approached the major merchants' houses of Cairo, the same people who had profited from his spending, and he began to borrow the gold he had just given away. But he didn't just borrow it, he borrowed it at high interest rates. By promising to pay these merchants back later with even more gold from the mines of Mali, he effectively sucked the excess gold out of the Egyptian streets and locked it away in his caravan. He was literally contracting the money supply. This is exactly what the Federal Reserve does today when they raise interest rates to fight inflation. In 1325, a West African king was using monetary policy before the word economics even existed in the English language. The brain drain, investing in human capital. Musa knew that gold was a volatile asset. He realized that for Mali to survive the next century, it needed something more stable: intellectual capital. In Cairo and Mecca, he began a massive headhunting campaign. He didn't just want gold, he wanted brains. He met a man named Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, a brilliant poet and architect from Granada, Spain. Musa offered al-Sahili 200 kilograms of gold, roughly $12 million today, just to move to Mali. Why? Because Musa wanted to build a city that would act as a safe haven for global wealth. That city was Timbuktu. By bringing in the best architects, judges, and doctors from the Islamic world, Musa transformed Mali from a mining colony into a knowledge economy. When the gold eventually ran low centuries later, the libraries of Timbuktu remained. That was his real hedge against inflation. Mansa Musa died around 1337, but his impact didn't fade for centuries. In 1375, European map makers created the Catalan Atlas, which featured Musa sitting on a throne holding a massive gold nugget. This single image would eventually drive the Portuguese and other Europeans to sail south, searching for the land of gold. Musa's story isn't just about being the richest man ever. It's a reminder that wealth isn't just about what you have, it's about how you move it. If you found this deep dive into the finance of the ancient world interesting, subscribe for more.